Starovoyt himself. So did he commit suicide? We just don't know. But he was probably looking at a potentially quite lengthy jail term if he'd been found guilty. And the way the Russian court system works, if you're charged with an offence like that as an official, there's probably a pretty good chance you're going to end up behind bars.
This rally on Daly Plaza running a little bit late, but expected to get underway any minute now. It's one of several in the city, suburbs, and nationwide that are meant to draw attention to what organizers say is the Trump administration's assault on civil liberties. Now, earlier,
as you mentioned there, it's not the only suspicious death of a quite high-ranking person in the Russian elite. Earlier this week as well, Andrei Badalov, vice president of Transneft, which is an oil company largely owned by the Russian government, he was found dead after a fall from a building he lived in. It's not known how this happened, but when and why do Russian oil executives and the like tend to die under these sort of suspicious circumstances?
Of course, there's also that sense of entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the king. So, what I say goes.
Well, plus, because I was watching a documentary where they said that he actually changed a lot of court life too, because correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he the first king to sort of demand people specifically dressed him as was either Your Highness or Your Majesty? I forget what it was, but it was a convention that started with him, and he introduced a lot of new things into court life that wasn't really unheard of back in the day. Hold on, let me.
Now that I wasn't aware of, but
Highness, that's what it was. Yeah, so he insisted on everybody call him Your Highness,
right,
as opposed to whatever the convention was before. And what strikes me is the fact that Richard, I think he's the first king up until that point who really doesn't get himself involved militarily either. He's kind of just happy sitting back, letting other people do the dirty work for him while he just swans about in the palace and just has Bushy, Bagot, and Green go and do whatever it is he wants them to do.
Well, yes, but I mean, there are kings that come after him who actually do go out into the field, not the least of which is Henry V.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, it kind of was expected that the king, well, he did in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
He did go to Ireland and take part in the festivities there.
Is that what they call it, festivities?
Well, killing Irish people is always a festivity, isn't it? So yes, it was only later that he decided that no, he wasn't going to get his nice clothes dirty by going out in the field and getting all muddy. So yeah.
No, so I was going to say, so we finished doing our discussion of Twelfth Night, and you suggested Richard II, which I was personally delighted to do, because this was one of the first plays that I'd read when I got into Shakespeare. That this and Hamlet, and what I find so interesting is the fact that whereas Hamlet, it's kind of distant. It's very in the past. It's very much something that is kind of relegated to the realm of psychology and philosophy and religion. In its moral underpinnings. This is very much relevant, even today. It's not like we haven't seen a Richard II, in this century or in the past century.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say something about my assessment of Hamlet.
Well, I think the problem with Hamlet is one can get terribly caught up in the whole psychology of it, and forget the visceral nature of it.
or or its bloody origins, because it was originally taken from a much older, I think a much older saga, and kind of adapted for at that time modern sensibilities.
Yeah. So what do we do with in modern day with Richard II? Well, even in its time, it was kind of controversial, because I don't know if you know this story, but there was the Earl of Essex who, Queen Elizabeth was getting on, and she was getting old, and she had no heir. So I don't know if you've watched my play, Shakespeare Unbound, but it's all in there.
Well, we actually had an episode last year where another guest and I chatted about the Essex plot, but please, regale us with with this, because when one thinks of Richard II, they think of this, how this is so tied to a plot that nearly got Shakespeare in trouble with the law, as it were.
Well, it kind of did, but they managed to talk their way out of it.
Right. He lived to write several more plays, afterwards.
Yeah.
Essex, not so much.
And the company managed to stay out of the Tower, unlike what was the company? The Isle of National, by performing Isle of Dogs. I think it was the Admiral's Men.
Okay.
The Admiral's Men performed Isle of Dogs, and got put in the Tower. The whole company got put in the Tower for doing so. So anyway, Richard II is one of the early plays, and wasn't particularly controversial at the time. It was, it was part of the whole history cycle. Richard II, Richard III, Henry IV, Henry IV Part 1 to Henry V, Henry VI Part 1. Hang on, it's fourth that has 1, 2, and 3, and so on. And in my play, Shakespeare Unbound, I talk about how young William had this passion to bring Shakespeare, to bring England's history to the stage. But at the time, England's history on the stage or in performance was pageants, and he wanted to. This is according to Hemmings, John Hemmings' version, and he wanted to do them as plays, as not psychological, but as plays with real characters who triumphed and lost, and who suffered, and like any other character, like Romeo. I mean, and so when it was first performed, which I think, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken, was in the 1590s or mid 1590s, it wasn't really particularly controversial, and then when the Essex and then when Essex wanted to start his rebellion, because there was all that jockeying for position because Elizabeth was getting old. She had no heir, and yeah, at that time, a country with no monarch ended up in a political void. So, in order to avoid the political void, Essex was one of a group of guys who said, "Look, we need to find an heir, and we need to get the old gal to step down, to abdicate, so that we can put somebody else on the throne, so that there is a continuance of monarchical control." And so, given that Richard II was all about a king abdicating, which was pretty unique in England's history, he sent a man called Meres, Meres, with 40 shillings to meet with John Hemmings, who was kind of responsible for the workings of the company. He was kind of the manager. And said, "Look, can you do Richard II tomorrow? And the day after?" And this is one of the almost unique moments when a play was performed on 2 consecutive days, which gave it immense importance, and 40 shillings was, as I say in the play, no small sum. And so Hemming said, "Yeah, okay, well, £2, 40 shillings, that's a lot of money, certainly more than we usually take for 2 days, and we can also charge as well. We can charge for entry, so we got 40 shillings plus our entry fees. Good action, sounds good." Of course, he had no idea why Mears was bribing him in this way. And so on the second day of Richard II being performed, the Earl of Essex tried to have his insurrection, which got as far as the palace and then was just completely decimated by the palace guard. And Mears and the Earl of Essex were both arrested. Mears was hanged, and the Earl of Essex was beheaded, and that was an end to it. But Elizabeth was absolutely furious with the Chamberlain's men for having performed the play, and is reputed to have said, "I am Richard," because she recognized, as perhaps did everybody else, the subtext of what this was all about. And John Hemmings and Augustine Phillips were hauled in front of the Privy Council, and they were questioned for 12 hours, and whether they were allowed pee breaks or coffee, But I mean, they were seriously interrogated by the Privy Council. What the fuck did you think you were doing? And Hemmings, particularly, as we understand it, but Hemmings and Augustine Phillips both said, "Look, we had nothing to do with this. Yeah, this guy comes along and says, 'Here's 40 shillings. Can you do this play?' 2 nights, two afternoons running. Okay, we had no idea that there was some sort of rebellion and insurrection going on behind it, and they managed to convince the Privy Council that they were innocent of any malefaction or or connivance with the Earl of Essex and the rest of them, and were set free, and the company was not hauled off to the Tower and or beheaded. Whew.
It's like it's sort of like taking $1 million and saying, "Listen, they didn't tell me what it was for. I just took the money. That's it."
Yeah. No, it wasn't. I mean, yeah.
I mean, if someone gives you $1 million, you're not going to ask any questions,
Yeah. Especially when it's kind of your job,
Yeah.
I mean, putting on plays is kind of your job. So somebody wants to watch Richard II for a couple of days. Okay.
But was that an odd request, or was that kind of normal?
I think it probably was. I don't know if, I mean, all the research I've done, I've never heard of any other nobleman or saying, can you perform this play or can you perform that play? But maybe it was fairly common. The Duke of Lancaster wanted to impress his girlfriend or his mistress, so he said to them, I mean, they would certainly be invited to big houses to perform, and yes, was the play that they were to perform specified? Yes, probably it was. I mean, there's a story about why Twelfth Night is called Twelfth Night.
Right.
It's because Elizabeth wanted to play for the celebrations of the Epiphany, and there's some speculation as to how much notice she gave the company. But apparently she said, "Okay, come to Hampton Court on Epiphany and perform me a new play." Okay, shit, right. Which might explain, which is a reasonable explanation as to why there are so many plot holes in Twelfth Night.
Right.
Because he had something like 10 days to throw it together.
Yeah, and I think that's something we mentioned when we did our discussion of Twelfth Night a few months ago. So I want to go back a little bit because when Essex first comes up with this idea, he's not having a Brutus moment where he's doing this solely out of love for the country. He has someone in particular in mind to kind of step into the role of the monarch. Did he kind of think, maybe I might look good with a crown on my head? I think I could, carry the royal purple as good as Queen Bess.
Almost certainly, maybe him. Maybe not. Maybe somebody that was that that was under his thumb.
So sort of like, I mean, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it would sort of be like, you know, I forget who it was, but putting Edward on the throne and expecting him to kind of play ball, and then he kind of goes off and marries a commoner, you know, that kind of expectation. I've got a puppet who'll do what I say, and
hang on,
you know,
which Edward?
I think it's Edward the Fourth in the Wars of the Roses, because
Oh right, yeah.
Because he's famous for marrying that commoner, and then all hell breaks loose after that. But you know, so Essex wasn't necessarily thinking of himself, but he was thinking of, if I can just get one of my stooges on the throne, you know, then I'm good. But he wasn't necessarily thinking.
I think that's probably the case. I'm on a lot of Facebook pages where we talk about Shakespeare, and I do get terribly frustrated with people who make absolute statements of, you know, it was this. Well, yeah. How can you possibly know? Were you there?
I mean, it was secretive, so if people knew about it, it would kind of defeat the purpose of it being secretive.
So
I'm sure Essex took most of it to the grave with him anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly Essex did most of the heavy lifting when it came to organizing the rebellion. But whether it was for his own majestical glory or for sheer politics, in that he would be in a position to control whoever was on the throne.
Because when I was reading the play and I was thinking about the Essex plot, I just kept wondering, is he sort of casting himself as Bolingbroke? Is he kind of expecting himself to kind of, you know, at first, you know, refuse the crown, but then kind of step in and say, I'm doing this because the country's under mismanagement, you know?
I don't think you can second guess that, but yes, I mean, you know, Bolingbroke politically in the play, Bolingbroke plays it extremely in a very astute way. Because he says, you know, well, I mean, you know, Richard makes just mistake after mistake after mistake.
Oh, where do we begin?
And that's what's so glorious about the play itself, because it is so fucking human. Yeah, Richard II just you know is. I mean, the mistakes he makes are. They're human mistakes. Yeah, I mean, he's not a monster. He's not really like Edward II, as in Marlowe's play, where he just goes berserk. Although, you know, when it comes to the fight between Mowbray and Bolingbroke, and you know, and you know, and they say, okay, we settle this fight by jousting, and Richard says, yeah, okay, you can do that, and then the jousting is all ready to start, and Richard, for reasons best known to himself, says, "Nah, forget that. You're both banished."
Yeah, I think Mowbray is banished, you know, for the rest of his life, and Bolingbroke, I think he gets 6 or 7 years, and then
6 years, yeah,
and then he ends up getting commuted to life. exile.
Yeah, and also all his goods and lands are sequestered after his dad dies.
Yeah.
And so he's been banished for 6 years, and he's now got no. He's now got no goods. His castle, no castles, no lands. And I mean that's Richard's second big mistake.
Mhm.
I mean,
But I mean, Gaunt makes a very astute observation about what's going on in the country too, and he makes this very famous speech about the Sceptred Isle, and about how basically he's telling Richard, you fucked the country over. I mean, and Richard's basically saying, oh well, he's sick, so he's just saying it because he's not right in the head, but I mean. But I mean, it's one of those things where you can't tell Richard. People haven't been, shaking you by the shoulders and telling you, "Hey, you're going down the wrong path. You better turn around now." Gaunt does it from the very beginning, but apparently Richard is just so caught up in himself, he'll just carry on, and he ends up screwing his cousin, Bolingbroke, really, really badly.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Sceptred Isle speech, and it's so often misinterpreted.
Really?
Well, it's interpreted by many people as being a celebratory. Well, it's like it's like Bruce Springsteen's. Born in the USA.
Yeah, kind of like a nostalgic patriotism kind of thing. Kind of remember, because when I read it, it was like, well, remember back in the good old days when life was much simpler. It's kind of like what you would see in a presidential campaign every 4 years. Like, remember back in the old days when
well, it's not that at all. It's a lament.
Okay.
It's a dreadful lament. Oh God, yeah.
So is he being ironic then when he's saying all of this then?
No, he's being that Sceptred Isle, that
I'm looking for it right now on my end, because this is right before he passes away. He gives that final speech, and it's so beautiful, and yet it's so frustrating because he delivers that speech to the one person who really, really doesn't care. he just brushes it off. It's like, oh, that's nice, and he goes off to do something else. Not to mention that his son, isn't going to be there to inherit. Not that there's anything for him to inherit anyway. Because the thing is Act 2, Scene 1, I believe. And I was just reading, the speech last night too. But while we're looking for the speech, because it is a lovely one, and it's one of those that's gone down as one of the most, probably like one of the most beautiful that Shakespeare's ever written.
Except that, as I say, it's misinterpreted in the same way as
To Be or Not to Be,
or no, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA.
Oh yeah. I only found out recently what he was actually saying in that song too.
I mean, if you actually look at the lyrics,
Okay, so I've got here, methinks I am a prophet of new inspired, and thus expiring do foretell of him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this royal throne of kings. the sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress. It's nostalgia, yes, but it's also it's all this has been, all these good things about England have been I mean, there's a whole lot before you actually get to the meat of the on line 740. Dear for her reputation throughout the world, is now leased out. I die pronouncing it like a tenement or a pelting farm. England, bound in with the triumphant sea whose rocky shore beats back the envious siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame, with inky blots and rotten parchment bonds. That England that was wont to conquer others has made a shameful conquest of itself. Ah, would the scandal vanish with my life? How happy then were my ensuing death.
I mean, I would say it's also a lament on himself too, because
well, yes. Yeah.
I mean, no, because I mean, Richard, he didn't have a dad. His father passed away when he was young, so he was kind of put in charge of being responsible for the boy, and and he did his best to try to make sure that Richard would, turn out to be a very decent king, but but based on what he's saying, is just saying, well, yeah, I guess I messed up on my end because I thought I
failed. Yeah,
it's like that parent who's like, you hear it all the time. I thought I raised you right. I taught you to do this and that. How could you do this? Insert whatever is shameful. How could you be this way? Like I thought I raised you better. So yes, it's a lament about England being sold by the pound, to use a modern reference, but I think it's also Gaunt kind of beating his breast and saying, well, I failed, I tried to be a father for him when he didn't have one, and look what happened. But I want to back up a little bit, because you did mention that Richard is making a lot of mistakes. Like, I mean, what besides him being a greedy little shit, like what other things is he doing that kind of make you just think, oh, I can't believe he fucked up again? Like, how many times can you keep messing up like this? I said this with a straight face, by the way.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
It's a loaded question, is what it is.
Yeah. Well, he gets all the whole thing about Bushy, Bagot, and Green, and having them executed. Could be something which, as an actor, you could consider that as, oh, I've got power.
And it's since I was 13.
I can have people executed. Oh, this is fun. Because there's nothing that corrupts. I mean, as Shakespeare makes, it's something that runs through Shakespeare quite a lot. There is nothing that corrupts more than power. As we talked about in Measure for Measure.
Right.
How Angelo gets corrupted by his power. So,
but to be fair, I mean, at least with Angelo, he kind of goes through the work of having to put on a facade of being this, of being a just person, kind of at least appear like he's squeaky clean. Whereas Richard, it's kind of like you can kind of tell just from looking at him. He really doesn't. He's really not hiding it.
I think. Okay, now it comes to how you direct the play and how you play Richard II.
That was actually be another question I was going to ask. Is like how, what is the actor's approach versus the director's approach to playing this character? Because it may seem like the one directive is, you want to play Richard II as a tyrant, but even then it's like there are many different ways to play the tyrant. I mean, do you play the tyrant as a benevolent leader who kind of does something sneaky on the side, or someone who's just an outright jerk to everybody, or what? Or a petulant child, as because I recently watched the Hollow Crown version, and Ben Whishaw plays him as someone who's like a little kid, sitting on the throne, like someone who's in a state of arrested development, as it were.
Well, any work of art, any play, any characterization has to be a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a journey, then you have to have somewhere where you start from and somewhere where you end up.
Right, the hero's journey. Yeah.
So if you start from a tyrant, then there's not a lot of journey to go, because he's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you start, as I think I would if I were approaching how to perform this, if you start off, you say Ben Whishaw started off as a kind of sport child,
Mm-hmm.
with a sense of entitlement, which then develops into corrupting, because a sense of entitlement becomes a sense of power, and then once he understands the power that he has, he starts to abuse it, and by abusing it, that starts to corrupt him,
Mm-hmm.
and then it all comes back to bite him in the ass.
Right.
Basically.
But it's not real. But it's not really a heroic, journey, because, as is a villainous journey, because even though he's aware of what his power is, he's not really being informed on how to properly use it, as it were.
Absolutely.
Or what we would understand as properly using it, because
it doesn't have to be a heroic journey.
Right.
It's the journey can be a descent. Again, going back to Angelo, A Measure for Measure, his journey is, I am moral. I am the epitome of morality, and his journey is a descent into corruption, which, I am so fascinated by Angelo as being perhaps, for me, the most intriguing personality in the whole of Shakespeare, because his descent into corruption is such a dichotomy of there is this incredible conflict because he's doing, he's moral, he's doing wrong, he knows he's doing wrong, he can't help himself from doing wrong, and he hates himself because he can't help himself from doing wrong, despite the fact that he is moral.
Right. But I mean, like, but that's a complete contrast with Richard, who doesn't have that conflict. It's absent within him.
Yeah.
Another thing too is that Angelo, for all of his abuse of power, he still has to answer to someone, right? Yeah. So it's not like he's exercising, absolute power like we see with Richard II.
Yeah. Except he does have to answer. He has to answer to God.
Well, he doesn't really factor that much into play, unless you count Carlisle.
Well, yes. Then there's that wonderful speech from the Bishop of Carlisle.
That one that prophesies the what we see later on in the Wars of the Roses.
Yeah. Oh God, I used to do this as an audition speech. Marry, God forbid, worse may I speak, yet best beseeming me to speak the truth. Would God that any in this noble presence were enough noble to be upright judge to noble Richard, then true noblesse would learn him forbearance from so foul a wrong. What subject can give sentence on his king, and who sits here that is not Richard's subject? Thieves are not judged, but they are by to hear. And shall the figure of God's majesty, his captain, deputy elect, be judged by subject and inferior breath, and he himself not present? Oh, for offended God! It's a wonderful speech.
Would you say this is like one of your most favorite in this entire play?
I mean, yes, as a speech, and in every play, there is one character who has fireworks and then disappears, and if I was Shakespeare, those are the parts I would write for myself. Because Carlisle delivers that amazing speech and then gets hauled off to be executed.
Well, no, because it gets spared later on, and Henry's like, you can potter off and do whatever you want. I just don't want to see your face again. So I want to go back to the actor's approach to Richard II, because I mentioned I recently watched the Ben Whishaw portrayal, and then you recommended that I check out Ian McKellen's portrayal, and it's interesting because they're both playing the same character, and you recognize those traits in both of them, but the way that they approach it is very unique, right? I mean, Ben, like I said, Ben Whishaw is giving us more of a spoiled, trust fund baby who has a blank check and can do whatever he wants, whereas Ian McKellen, from my point of view, he kind of starts off as someone who's very much grounded in reality, but as the play progresses, he becomes more and more diluted to the point where I don't know if he could tell the difference between fantasy and reality anymore. Even when he's surrendered his crown, he's kind of thinking in the back of his mind, oh, this is just a temporary setback. I'll make him think he's won, and then I'll get him afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, McKellen plays him as a kind of arch politician, but yes, I also accept your assessment of the fact of he's again, power has that extraordinary way of dismantling your brain and your contact with reality. I think you're seeing this taking place in real time in the United States at the moment.
That's true. But I would also, I'm not trying to avoid, but I would say like, I would say the one person who kind of, I think, encapsulates that more than anybody is a certain president of Russia who still believes he has a chance in Ukraine. But this is not a political podcast. We don't want to get too far in the weeds. But I do want to ask because Richard II is such such an interesting play, because you have so many different characters all out with their own motivations. And what I find interesting is the fact that with Richard, he's very lyrical. The way he speaks, it's very, and I can't remember whether it was in a class or in a documentary, but someone pointed out that the way that Shakespeare wrote Bolingbroke and Richard's lines is to sort of show a contrast between the two men, because Bolingbroke, I think he's speaking in blank verse, so it's more, it's still performative, but it's more in line with the ordinary man, whereas Richard's is very, he's speaking in rhyming couplets. It's more of what you would expect with iambic pentameter poetry. Really, is that something that's true, or something that you've noticed? Or
it's not something I've noticed. I would have to go back and look more closely at the actual verse structure.
Because I've noticed with some of Richard's lines, like a lot of them are rhyming couplets. Because I think there was one where he says, Jesus in 12, he found a traitor in one, and I in 1,000, none, or something like that. I probably butchered that line, but that was the one that stands out to me.
So that'll be Act 3, Scene 3, no?
Yeah, it's when he's it's the resignation scene where he's giving up his crown. And his imagery is just so rich too, because he's comparing him and Bolingbroke to two buckets. One is empty and dancing higher in the air, and the other is just filled with water and going further and further down. And you kind of get the sense that Bolingbroke is a bit frustrated with all of this, because this is whether it's intentional or not, he's speaking to you or to me, the ordinary faces in the crowd. And I can't help but wonder if that was kind of Shakespeare's way of showing that these are two very different men who have a very different approach to politics. As you say, Richard, being the king, is very much corrupted by absolute power, and Henry, initially he's only interested in getting his lands back, but then he kind of feels like he needs to promote himself to king, because he's not doing this for himself, he's doing this for the betterment of the country. Yeah, so like in Act 4, Scene 1, I'm looking at the
Okay, well, I just want to go back to Act 3. What were we looking at? Act 3, Scene 3. There's two incredible speeches.
I already bookmarked it. Never mind. I was flipping around for nothing.
From Richard. We are amazed, and thus long, line 1710, we are amazed, and thus long have we stood to watch the fearful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourselves thy lawful king, and if we be, how dare thy joints forget to pay their awful duty to our presence? If we be not, show us the hand of God that hath dismissed us from our stewardship, for well we know no hand of blood and bone can gripe the sacred handle of our sceptre, unless he do profane, steal, or usurp. And though you think that all, as you have done, have torn their souls by turning them from us, and we are barren and bereft of friends. Yet know my master, God omnipotent, is mustering in his clouds on our behalf armies of pestilence, and they shall strike your children yet unborn and unbegot, that list your vassal hands against my head, etc., etc. And then there's a second, and then we get into the what must the king do now? Must he submit?
Mhm.
The king shall do it. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. Must he lose the name of king? Oh, God's name, let it go. And I just look at those. Just look at those 4 lines.
Mhm.
And break down the way Shakespeare uses iambic pentameter and the weak strong, the weak strong, the weak strong. Now, if you take the first line, what must the king do now? Must he submit? Firstly, there's the great effectiveness of talking about yourself in the third person. Secondly, there is the fact that a king is using the word must. And given everything that we've talked about, and king and power and God omnipotent being
Being the boss.
being the boss. So what must the king do now? Must he submit? So the first must is on a strong beat, and the second must in that line is on a weak beat. And the strong beat is he. What must the king do now? Must he submit? By stressing the he, you give incredible power to that line.
So the emphasis is not on the must, as some people would think. It's more on the he, on the person, not the action.
Right, because I mean, if you just read it intellectually, what must the king do now? Must he submit? It has very much less power theatrically than what must the king do now? Must he submit?
The king shall do it.
The king shall do it. Must he be deposed?
So in that second line, then the emphasis would be on the must, not the first one, but on the second line. Okay.
Yeah, and the king shall do it. Must he be deposed? Now, what Shakespeare is doing, he's moving into using the what's it called? Not the active tense, the passive tense.
Right.
The king shall do it, active. Must he be deposed? Passive. So the king is now in a passive, linguistically, being put into a passive situation.
Right. Because because in the first line, if the emphasis on the king as the person, then the second line it's more focus on the action itself. Really.
Yeah.
Like must he be deposed as opposed to what must he do?
Yeah.
Must he submit? Right.
Yeah. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. Must he lose? And now we have
That's
must
strong.
On the strong beat. Must he lose the name of king? Oh, God's name, let it go. It's incredibly powerful if you follow the verse.
And it has that rhythm to it too. When you're reading it, like you can feel the rhythm of these beats as he's saying these lines. The king shall do it. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. It's like it's got this rhythm to it that kind of flows. That in a way that's kind of perfect for a character like Richard II. Really,
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Shakespeare here. I'll give my jewels for a set of beads, and then incredible use of repetition. My gorgeous palace, my gay apparel, my figured goblets, my scepter, my subjects, and my large kingdom. So the my of all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 my's in those lines, my gorgeous palace, my gay apparel, my figured, are all on weak beats, and then my is on the strong beat. So when it comes to that 7th line, 6th, 7th line where he uses my, suddenly the my falls on the strong beat, and my large kingdom for a little grave. And so you have the
it kind of up in a way.
The contradiction or the juxtaposition: large kingdom, little grave.
Well, what's also interesting too, because at the very beginning, like you said, he kind of he refers to himself in the third person. It's almost as if he kind of divorces himself from the role of the king, because he doesn't really want to accept that this is a position that he's in. But by the time you get to line 5, that's when he starts to associate himself with the king. He becomes the object, of this wonderful speech, to where he's like, well, I'll do it, as opposed to the king will do it when, 2 or 3 lines before.
Well, I mean, I think the second line, "the king shall do it, must he be deposed," is a linguistic device to empower the language. I don't think it's that he is in any way accepting it. He is rubbing his nose, in fact, more in Bolingbroke's betrayal.
Interesting.
Must he be deposed? Yeah, I mean, this is.
It's almost. It's kind of like with Antony's speech. There's almost a hint of sarcasm in the way he's giving it. It's like, well, must I really do this?
Yeah.
But
I've always loved that particular section, because of the incredible use of the iambic pentameter, the verse, for dramatic effect, and the way he moves words around, like the must, like the my, like turning it suddenly into the passive form and then coming back. Must he lose the name of king? Oh, God's name, let it go. I'll give. Yeah. And it's, I'll give my jewels for a set of beads. And then again, there's the use of the imagery use of something gorgeous for something, my gorgeous palace for a hermitage, something beautiful for something plain, something beautiful for something plain, something beautiful, and that use of antithesis.
Well, I was going to say too, because the way that it's delivered too, like you can't really say it with a lot of force or a lot of speed. Like you can't just be as be as forceful, because in the previous the previous speech where he's saying, we are amazed and long have we stood to watch the fearful bending, you can sort of imagine there's almost like this forcefulness to it to kind of drive home the point that I can't believe you would do this to me, whereas here it's more reflective. It's more you kind of have to slow your delivery down a little bit, because not only does the context calls for it, but the way that the iambic pentameter and the language being conveyed, you kind of have to slow it down in a way to where where it needs to be reflective, but also to give the audience a chance to understand and appreciate the imagery that's being conveyed. Right.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I mean, the speech before, as you say, we are amazed, and thus long have we stood to watch the fearful bending of thy knee. I mean, that should be thunderous.
Exactly. I mean, especially if you're delivering a line like he's come to open the purple testament of bleeding war, you kind of have to have like this ominous vibe, to you when you're delivering those lines. Whereas this one, where you're delivering, that repetition over and over again, it's almost like you kind of have to shift gears from being, self-deluded, with this large sense of grandeur, to almost this, sarcasm giving away to a sense of resignation almost. Because when he says must he be deposed, it's him kind of thumbing his nose at Henry, but then as he's saying these words, you kind of get the sense reality is slowly, if not completely, starting to sink in for him. Right, because for me anyway, when I read it, it's kind of him coming to the realization, like, well, I would have to give away my gay apparel for an almsman's gown, my figured goblets for a dish of wood. Like, it's kind of him having to it's kind of like when people realize they've lost a lot of money because of a scam. They realize they kind of have to scale back on what they're used to. So instead of driving a Lambo, for instance, they have to deal with the fact that maybe they might have to drive a Peugeot or a Renault instead, or instead of using fine crystal goblets, then they have to use like plastic cups.
I don't see it like that. I see it as really, again, rubbing it's bitter. It's hugely bitter, and it's highly passive aggressive, in fact.
Oh, right. So it sounds like he's trying to make Bolingbroke feel kind of guilty for what he's doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's like, I can't believe you're making me do this. So to use modern parlance, he's playing the victim here.
Yeah. He's
I mean, in a way, he is kind of the victim, because he's been captured. So there's not much else.
I mean, but he's not. It's not a humility.
Well, genuine humility. Anyway.
It's I mean, I'll go with passive aggressive for that section. Yeah.
So if you were directing Richard II, and you came across this section, I mean, would you tell the actor, or would you kind of recommend the actor maybe try to go for, as you say, the passive aggressive bent to kind of drive home the point of how you would envision Richard or Bordeaux in this scene?
As a director,
well, you've worn both hats. You've worn both the actor and the director's hat, so I feel it's a valid question to ask you.
As a director, I was waiting to see what the actor does with it. And then, depending, as a director, my way of working is I wait to see what the actor does. If it works, I try and help them go further. If I feel it doesn't work, or if there is a different approach, which I think might be more interesting to develop, then
Now,
I would say that's great. Yeah, that's wonderful.
yeah.
Always give actors positive feedback.
Now,
Because,
no. When you say war, what exactly do you mean by that? Because
well,
because everybody's going to approach the role differently.
well, it comes back to what is acting.
Mhm.
And there's something that I absolutely believe fundamentally. Acting is not about what the actor feels; it's about what the actor makes the audience feel.
Mhm.
Which is where technique comes in.
Mm. Mm.
Because if you've got the technique, you can make I mean, one could put that in a more cynical way. It's all about sincerity, and if you can fake that, you've got it made.
Right. Fake it till you make it, as they say.
Yeah, yeah. And so, as a director, that is what I would do. I would wait until I would give the actor completely free rein
Mhm.
and see what he does with this. And if I feel it's working, and if I feel that it is having the effect that the actor wants, then I would look to find ways to make that even more effective.
Mhm.
If I feel that it kind of wasn't working, and the actor was going somewhere which actually wasn't coming across, I would offer a different direction. See if they make that work.
Well, how far would the actor have to go before you stepped in and said, "Well, hold on, maybe you should try it this way instead"?
How far? Well, shit. I mean, if you take that sequence,
Mhm.
if you can make me cry, then it's working.
As opposed to if they read this, if they recited the speech and you looked at them, very, very confused and very angry, that might not be the best.
Well, I mean,
approach.
the worst thing would be they do it and I feel absolutely nothing.
Right, but that would mean they would just stand there just reading from a piece of paper and you just sit there like, what?
Well, yes. I mean, but hopefully,
they wouldn't be acting at that point. They would just be reading. So,
but hopefully I would have hired a better actor than that. As one of the directors that I've worked with, somebody I have huge respect for, he says 80% of directing is in the casting.
Right.
If you get the right actor,
because they do all the heavy lifting,
and then you just leave them alone because the director is, if you've got the right actor and a text as rich as that, once you start directing, you're just going to get in the way. Especially if what they're doing is making it work. Yeah, as I say, a little grave, an obscure grave or I'll be buried in the King's Highway. So if by that time you've actually got me crying, then like O'Merle, as we see later, then what you're doing is being truthful to the text.
Because because like you said, I mean, the way you read it, it's very much a passive aggressive diatribe against his captors, basically, and against his cousin. It's just basically him being a little bitch. I mean, he even says it. What says King Bolingbroke? Will His Majesty give Richard leave to live till Richard die?
Yeah, and that's obviously, I mean, we're huge sarcasm. Most mighty prince, my lord Northumberland, what says? And you laugh at me, most mighty prince, my lord Northumberland. What says King Bolingbroke? Will His Majesty give Richard leave till Richard die? You make a leg, and Bolingbroke says I. You talked earlier about rhyming couplets. Rhyming couplets, one has to be very careful with them. And again, they are never by chance. You often find them at the end of a scene. And that's a hugely practical reason for that, is because those actors that are waiting to come on, when they hear the rhyming couplet, they know the scene before them is finished.
Right. So it's a cue. It's a cue that we were talking about. Last time.
And it gives and the use of the rhyming couplet there gives a finality to the diatribe that has just gone before. And well, and there's probably a pause after it, because like how can you follow that?
Right.
There's also the oh yes, of course, there's something that we haven't taken into account here, is the fact that this whole scene takes place with Richard above. Now, of course, theatrically, that's a position of power.
Right.
That's a position of power. That's a position of strength. So there's again a contradiction in that theatrically, Richard has the strong position on the stage. So there is a contradiction between the fact that he is politically weak, he's linguistically strong, because being able to come up with that that speech is as I say, what how the fuck do you follow that? That speech, right.
Well, you come down, that's what you do, because he says, down, down I come, like listening Phaethon.
My lord, in the base court he doth attend to speak with you. May it please you to come down. Base court. So Erne of Northumberland uses the word base court, and Richard picks it up. Down, down I come, glistering Phaethon, wanting the manage of unruly jades to the base court. And this is interesting because suddenly it's not in verse anymore.
Mm-mm.
It's in prose.
Yeah, he's talking like the rest of them. He kind of has to debase himself, as it were, to come down linguistically down to everybody's level. And it's interesting too because when I think about it now, when Northumberland says that line, it's almost like a cue to saying, okay, now you switch from verse to prose. In this case. So not only is it like a cue for him to kind of step down, but it's also a cue for him to kind of shift the way that he's been speaking this entire time.
Yeah. And then we get to where he comes down, and where he does come down, and Bolingbroke creeps. This is so false. Show fair duty to His Majesty, my gracious lord. And Richard then is back on his high horse, his linguistic high horse. There's such a it's such a ping pong match. This and the next scene.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about the abdication scene, right?
Oh yes, no, it's not the next scene. It's the next scene is the one. Shakespeare's mastery of scenic it's filmic. It's very film. It's screenwriting.
Right.
No, the sequential. The sequentiality. No, of it. There's the scene between the Queen and the gardener, which is it's totally it's such a although the gardener is giving bad news and the Queen is not exactly light of foot, where do we get to the
is it Act 4, Scene 1?
Yes. Again, alack, why am I sent for to a king before I have shook off the regal thoughts wherein I reigned? I hardly yet have learned to insinuate, flatter, bow, and bend my limbs. Limbs? I know it as knee.
Yeah, my copy says knee.
Okay. This is, I'm looking at the what's it called? The Shakespeare Online, what's it called? Open source Shakespeare.
Okay. But we still get the sense of what he's saying here, though.
Yes,
so.
yeah.
Lees, Nims, they're all the same.
Yeah. To insinuate, flatter, bow, and bend my limbs, to give sorrow leave a while to tutor me to this submission. Yet I well remember the favours of these men. Were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry all hail to me? Oh, yes. And that's where you...
Yep, that's that line I was telling you about earlier.
I don't see a... I don't see a rhyming couplet there.
Okay, yeah, it's not a rhyming couplet. In my mind, it was. But so Judas did to Christ, but he in 12 found truth on all but one. I in 12,000 none. Yeah, you're right. But it's just the way that he's employing it. It's just
it's the use of repetition. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he is employing the iambic pentameter to full effect here. Just to again. To employ that passive aggressiveness that he is so notorious for, really, to basically try one last time to shame everybody for doing what they did, and kind of kicking him off the throne, as it were, and bringing him down to everybody's level.
I think there's a relining going on here. I would have to check that with the folio.
Yeah, the one I'm using is the Pelican Shakespeare. I think they draw from the first folio.
Because after God Save the King, there should be a pause.
Okay.
And you don't have a pause in the middle of a verse line. If you reline it, God Save the King, pause. Will no man say amen? Am I both priest and clerk? Well, then, amen, God save the king, although I be not he. God save the king. Well, then, amen, God save the king. Well, then, amen, God save the king. Yeah. Although I be not here, and yet, amen, if heaven do think him me to do... I think there's been some relining going on here, because that's not playable.
It doesn't have that rhythmic bounce. Is that what you're
getting
at?
There's also God Save the King. I mean, you can't go God Save the King, will no man say amen. You have to have a pause.
Right, to allow for, I guess, for the other actors to kind of say it or not say it.
Not say it. And for the fact that they don't say it to mean something. Because if you say God Save the King, will no man say amen, it doesn't mean anything theatrically.
But wouldn't the director have the sense to know that there needs to be a pause in there in order to have that dramatic effect? I mean, they're not just going in it blindly, just saying, "Oh, we'll just follow the text and whatever happens." We'll play it by ear, as they say. Because it's not. Like when you read a line like that, I imagine like you would have the sense to know, okay, like yes, God save the king. Like pause, I guess, for a minute, and then you say the line. It's not like, well, God save the king. Will no man say? It's like, well, you didn't give people a chance to respond or to not respond. The right of first refusal. But I don't know.
But if you do reline it, God save the king, God save the king, 3, 4, 5. Will no man say amen? Am I both priest and clerk? Which is a perfect iambic pentameter line. Well, then, amen, God save the king, which is another perfect iambic pentameter line. Although I be not he, being a short line, which will hang in the air.
And you don't think it was done on purpose? You think it kind of might have gotten chopped up somewhere?
My first instinct looking at this is that, yes, it has been relined by academics.
Okay.
Because
the performer could read this and say, well, hang on, this doesn't make a lick of sense. Like, what's going on here?
well, it's also unplayable. I mean, and I mean, I have been working on Shakespeare for years, and I have found scores, if not hundreds, of examples of where what's the lineage in the folio has been cleaned up by the academics to make it look better on the page,
but not necessarily match the iambic pentameter.
But makes it unplayable.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. So when it's being performed, I mean, there really is no way to remedy it. That you would just have to omit it altogether, right? Because it's not playable, as you say. Because if it doesn't make sense from a performance standpoint, why would you retain it if it doesn't work? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. Although my again and again and again, I say trust Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
Trust Shakespeare. He knows. And that's, I mean, if you do reline it, as I just said.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. God save the king. Will no man say amen? Am I both priest and clerk? Well, then, amen. God save the king. Although I be not he. And yet, amen. If heaven do think him me. To do what service am I sent for hither? You see how much more...
Yeah, it sounds kind of broken up.
I see how much more theatrical it is.
Yeah.
And how much more acting value it has. Yeah. I mean, I'm making that line a short line, although I be not he. Again, a short line has power because there's a pause after it.
Yeah.
And as any musician will tell you, pauses are vital and eloquent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what I would do with it. I mean, no audience member is going to be sitting there going, "Oh, he's relined the," because in my text it says it. But it's about what I'm doing by doing that is giving the actor something so much more to work with.
Right, because the actor would know how to deliver that line and say it in a way that kind of works for the piece,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the academic who probably has no idea of what's going on, and they just figure, we just wanted to, at least on paper, make it look nice and pretty. We don't really care how it sounds as long as it looks okay. Then
on the page, yes.
Yeah.
I once had so I was talking to him about relining.
But
I don't. And anyway, what he said was, "Oh, lining is not important." And I just...
Then why is it happening then?
I just stared at him.
He is an academic, so I mean, the way that he said it, it's more in line with what you would expect, because they're not really coming from the same the same school of thought as you would.
Exactly. I mean, I have a and so so the academic approach and the players' approach. Yes, the academics can bring us players useful research.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wonder how useful when it comes to actually interpreting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, at some point, there is this thing called too much information that kind of clutters everything. Well, I do want to ask, like, have you ever been able to convert an academic to adopt your mindset, or has that just been a losing battle?
I have on small occasions. But I've never really. I mean, there is such a Berlin Wall between us, and it has to be said that we have difficulty listening to each other. Yeah, I mean, there was another academic who said to me, what can you possibly know about Shakespeare? You're only an actor. And
I wonder if they told a musician, well, what do you know about Mozart? You only play the piano.
Right. I mean, I was so blown away that I couldn't come up with the answer is which is, what can you possibly know about Shakespeare? You've never performed it.
I mean, he did catch you off guard, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was such a monstrously arrogant thing to say as well.
No, I mean, that's perfectly in line with Richard II.
Yeah, going back to Richard II, and this scene, which is obviously the fulcrum point for the whole play.
Right. Mm-hmm. This marks the turning point, really.
Yeah. Fulcrum point. Do you not know what the fulcrum point is? It's the balance point.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's full. Yep. Remember that from high school physics a long time ago.
Okay, so now we get to the famous speech, "Give me the crown, here cousin, seize the crown." Oh, well, there's one before that. No, we dealt with that.
Yeah, we dealt with that whole alignment thing. Yeah.
And now this is such a gift to actors. I mean, this is one of the most. I'm trying to think of a musical equivalent of this particular speech.
I mean, I would say with the two performances that I've seen, both of those actors really just enjoyed just milking the scene for everything it's got.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because on the one hand, it just takes that passive aggressiveness, playing the victim mentality to its apex, really.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, okay, let's break it down. Give me the crown, here cousin, seize the crown. Give me the crown, here cousin, seize the crown. Okay, so you've got a bit of repetition, alliteration. Cousin seize the crown. So you've got repetition and alliteration, and then you've got that short line, here cousin. And that is one of the most pregnant pauses ever. And any director will have them have Langley or Bolingbroke, Bolingbroke, take the crown and hand it out. And Richard puts his hand on it, and you have that visual image of the two of them. On this side, my hand, and on that side, yours.
Two men grabbing the crown, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, and so, we're talking pure theatre here. Yeah, I mean, because there's a text I wrote that's, theatre is not just about language. Theatre communicates with everything. With the body, with the emotion, with the passion, with it's not just about language. And on this side, my hand, and on that side, yours. Now is this golden crown like a deep well that owes two buckets filling one another. The emptier ever dancing in the air, the other down, unseen and full of water. To finish off with a rhyming couplet. That bucket down and full of tears am I, drinking my griefs whilst you mount up on high. Fuck.
I mean, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, like who writes this stuff?
I mean, which makes Bolingbroke's response, almost comical. I thought you'd been willing to resign. It's like it's almost to the point where he's like, I can't deal with you anymore, man. I can't take it. Like, what are you doing here?
And then again, I mean, there's not only the intellectual passion. I thought you had been willing to resign. I thought you had been willing to resign. Okay, it's a perfect iambic pentameter line. My crown I am, but still my griefs are mine. You may my glories and my state depose, but not my griefs. Still am I king of those. Again, you've got this is what you were saying about the way he uses rhyming couplets. One of the things about using a rhyming couplet is that it's very difficult. It makes it very difficult to say something afterwards,
right?
Because it gives a sort of finality to what you've just said.
Well, it kind of works in a way because Richard's trying to he's trying to be the one to have the last word in the conversation, really. So then when Bolingbroke kind of like hits back with his one-liners, it's kind of like, oh well, now I gotta do it again. Now I gotta do it again because he rebuts part of your cares you give me with your crown.
Yeah. I thought you had been willing to resign, my God. Now, part of your cares you give me with your crown. Part of your cares you give me. Part of your cares you give me with your crown. So it's give is the third beat, and then the killer line, your cares set up, do not pluck my cares down. And then a whole series of repetition. My care is loss of care, by old care done. Your care is gain of care, by new care won. The cares I give, I have, though given away, they tend the crown, yet still with me they stay.
Again, trying to have the last word, and then he hits back. Are you contented to resign the crown?
Yeah.
It's like this back and forth that just keeps going between these two men. Like they're both trying to have the last word. It's that political struggle that you continue to see throughout the play, which is pretty funny, but at the same time, it's very dramatic.
It's hugely theatrical. I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, well, he was writing a play. And then again, another another speech which relies on. It starts out with a rhyming couplet. Look at, I give this heavy weight from off my head. So there's assonance, repeated sound, and this unwieldy scepter from my hand. So you've got head, hand, and if you look down, you've got head, hand, heart as the end of end words of those lines. With pride of kingly sway from out my heart. And then, like he did earlier with I give away my
what must the king do now? Must he
and again, look at the way the again, most people will say, with mine own tears. No, that's not the way Shakespeare wrote it. With mine own tears, I wash away my balm. With mine own hands, I give away my crown. With mine own tongue, deny my sacred state. With mine own breath, release all duteous rights. I know it is duteous. And so on. I mean, so you know, you've got that repetition 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and he hits 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hits, and the mine is the first beat on the line. Yeah, so many actors would go with mine own tears. No, that's not Shakespeare. With mine own tears.
When you say it's not Shakespeare, are you saying that it was added on later?
No, I'm saying that you're not respecting what Shakespeare wrote. You're not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Mozart earlier. Yeah, you're not. I have a friend who's a musicologist who says that Mozart invented syncopation, which is an interesting concept. And she said without Mozart, there would be no jazz. And that, because it's again, you know, so because if you don't stress that mine, you're not being truthful to what Shakespeare wrote, I think.
Yeah. Right. And kind of emphasize the fact that he's trying to, you know, say, you know, I'm doing this of my own volition. No one else is doing it for me, right? You're not taking it away from me. I'm giving it away willingly, you know.
Yeah, except that we're deep back into passive aggressive.
Right.
With mine own tears, I wash away my balm. With mine own hands, I give away my crown. With mine own tongue, I deny my sacred state. With mine own breath, release all duteous rights. Don't you think that works better?
Yeah.
Than with mine own tears, I wash away my balm. With mine own hands, I give away my crown. Yeah, I mean theatrically.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you say it that way, there's almost a sneer, a sense of bitterness to it. Whereas if you're just reading it casually, it's like, well, you know, it's a line that could be there or not be there. Doesn't matter.
It becomes a shopping list.
Exactly.
Whereas stressing that mine each time and making it perhaps a bit stronger each time. Yeah. And of course, it is abdication.
Mm-hmm.
It's reinforcing the whole concept that it is abdication. This is not, you say I'm forced to do this, but I am abdicating out of my own volition.
Right. He still has to come out on top, or he still has to look like the better man, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's going for the moral high ground.
Right, but then he just can't help himself when he gets near the end where he says, "God save King Henry," on King Richard says, and send him many years of sunshine days. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he just can't help himself. Like, he just has to take that cheap shot.
Yeah. And then there's that short line, but what more remains? Oh God.
Oh, and that would be the pause you were talking about, correct?
Well, it's a short line, so yeah.
But I mean, like, you would have to have that pause.
No, it isn't. It isn't a short line, because Northumberland, in principle, picks it up if you follow the lineage there.
Okay.
What more remains? No more, but that you read these accusations and these grievous kinds committed. And Northumberland comes back to forcing him to say that he has been deposed rather than that he has abdicated. And then again, Richard has this amazing speech again.
Is it "Must I do so," or is it "My eyes are full of tears"?
No, "Must I do so?"
Oh, okay.
"Must I do so, and must I ravel out my weaved up folly, gentle Northumberland? If thy offences were upon record, would it not shame thee in so fair a troop to read a lecture of them? If thou wouldst, there shouldst thou find one hailess article containing the deposing of a king and cracking the strong warrant of an oath, marked with a blot, damned in the book of heaven." Yeah, I mean, yeah. Though some of you with Pilate wash your hands, showing an outward pity, yet you, Pilates, have here delivered me to my sour cross, and water cannot wash away your sin. And my Lord Dispatch, read over these articles. "Mine eyes are full of tears, I cannot see, yet salt water blinds them not so much, but they can see a sort of traitors here. Nay, if I turn mine eyes upon myself, I find myself a traitor with the rest. For I have given here my soul's consent to undeck the pompous body of a king, made glory base and sovereignty a slave, proud majesty a subject, state a peasant. My lord, no lord of thine thou art, insulting man." He doesn't give up, does he? I mean,
No. I mean, he gets that, bitterness and aggressiveness back, because at that point he's becoming more. I guess you could say he becomes more assertive now that he finds himself in a position where he has nothing left to lose, because he's given away, his office to his cousin. So now he's just, now the claws have come out, as it were. He's being catty, and then by that point he's just becoming very, very, very aggressive. I just find it funny how he examines himself in that with the mirror too, and like after he gives that, after he like examines who he is. He just drops it. It's like, oh, what are you gonna do about it? I mean, look at that. Give me that glass in there, and will I read? No deeper wrinkles yet. Hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine and made no deeper wounds? It's like, it's like he's just, again, he goes back to that passive. He kind of like vacillates between being aggressive and being passive aggressive. I imagine any actor who is cast to play Richard II is going to have a field day because there's just so much work that goes into it. And as you said, the director it's up to the director to make sure they find the right actor to play this role, because there are just so many emotions that you're going through as you're playing this complex character.
And yes and no, because if you know how to decode the text, it plays itself. You're on a roller coaster. And Shakespeare will take you. Just let the words work on you. I mean, when I do my workshops, I always start by saying we're not here to learn how to play Shakespeare. We're here to learn how to let Shakespeare play us. And it's the same in Hamlet with the "O what a rogue peasant slave am I" speech. Yeah, if you follow the technical aspects of the speech, you can't. Again, if you take music, if you play something like Liszt, you can't help but get emotionally involved in what you're doing. As long as you've got the technique to be able to do it.
Right, because it's not an intellectual exercise. It's something far more visceral, far more deeper than simply reading, either reading, sheet music or reading lines on a page.
Right. Well, yes. I mean, because I mean, if we look at this next speech, give me the glass, and therein will I read. No deeper wrinkles yet hath sorrow struck. So because we have a midline ending here, we come banging in with the next. Again, this get the fuck intellectual out of it. Yeah, give me the glass, and therein will I read. No deeper wrinkles yet hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine, and made no deeper wounds. O flattering glass, like to my followers in prosperity, thou dost beguile me. Was this the face that every day under his household roof did keep 10,000 men? Was this the face that like the sun did make beholders wink? Was this the face that faced so many follies and was at last outfaced by Bolingbroke? A brittle glory shineth in this face, as brittle as the glory is the face. For there it is cracked in 100 shivers. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport, how soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face.
Yeah, the shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face. I just love that comeback. I mean, he's really good with the one-liners, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Like he just knows how to hit back.
But I mean, it's an unequal struggle.
Yeah. Because he's getting more screen time, as it were.
It's an unequal struggle linguistically.
Right.
Because again, Richard has this capacity to pick up what people have said and turn it round and throw it in their face. Say that again. The shadow of my sorrow. Let's see. 'Tis very true, my grief lies all within, and these external manners of laments are merely shadows to the unseen grief that swells with silence in the tortured soul. There lies the substance, and I thank thee, King, for thy great bounty. Thou not only givest me cause to wail, but teachest me the way how to lament the cause. I'll beg one boon, and then be gone and trouble you no more. Shall I obtain it? And Henry, he really is not a match for Richard. Name it, fair cousin. Fair cousin, I am greater than a king, for when I was a king, my flatterers were then but subjects, but now, better now, a subject, I have a king here to be my flatterer. Being so great, I have no need to beg.
You ask.
Yeah. Fuck off.
He really is being catty. Like, I gotta say,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, we thought Angela was quite, was quite, a difficulty. I mean, Richard just basically takes Angela to, what we've seen Angela to a whole new level, really.
Yeah. And I mean, what's amazing is when you think how much of an early play this was.
Right.
I can't remember when it was written, or when it was first credited as having been written.
I think it was like the mid 1590s.
Yeah, I mean, it's really one of the early plays. But I mean, linguistically, it just linguistically and, dare I say it, psychology. I hate the idea of Shakespeare, of psychology being applied to Shakespeare, because there is no subtext.
Mm-hmm.
What you see is what you get, and what you hear is what you get. What you hear is what there is. I mean, yes, of course, obviously in Othello with Iago, the subtext, because he's lying through his teeth. But he knows he's lying. It's not like subtext where you are saying stuff that you don't mean, or acting from an acting point of view. Subtext is the unspoken. I mean, you can't play Chekhov or Strindberg without subtext. It becomes incredibly dull and boring and flat and two-dimensional.
All right.
But if you try and put subtext underneath Shakespeare, you go down a intellectual rabbit hole from which you will never emerge.
It's an unnecessary complication, then. Right?
Yeah, and it's totally unnecessary, because Shakespeare has given the player everything he needs. Again, I mean, if you look at the working practices, they were working from Q scripts, so they had precious little, if any, idea of what the rest of the play was about. They had their lines, and a cue. And so, I mean, if you take the balcony scene, Romeo and Juliet, he's in the garden, and she's on the balcony outside her bedroom, and she has a long speech, and he really doesn't. The actor playing Romeo really doesn't know what she's going to say. All he knows is that at the end of that speech, she will say, "Take all myself," which is his cue to say, "I take thee at thy word." And call me by some other name, and I will henceforth be rebaptized. But I mean, what that creates in theatrical terms is the fact that the players listen. Yeah, I mean, I would love to get two actors together to do this scene who have never seen or heard King Richard II performed, and see what happens.
Just Richard and Bolingbroke, just to see how they would kind of play off each other.
Well, you probably need a couple of other actors to throw in their lines, but
okay.
I mean, it would be a great exercise for cue script acting, because
I would imagine I would imagine in that little exchange we just read, I would imagine it kind of be like, it would sort of be like rapid fire dialogue, like, Richard says something, and then Bolingbroke hits back with his rebuttal, and then Richard has to one up him with with more and more, and then Henry just shuts him down with his one-liners. I just think it'll be brilliant to put together and just see how they kind of play off each other, because we do have Richard, who's very highfalutin in the way he carries himself and the way that he speaks, contrasted by Henry, who's very much a salt of the earth kind of guy, very very laconic in the way that he speaks. He kind of he's the kind of guy who lets his actions do the talking for him.
Yeah, and I mean this. I mean, if you just look at the last bit before the exit, Henry says, "Go, some of you convey him to the tower." And now, if Richard's only cue was to the tower, then the actor playing Richard would hear Henry saying "convey." Oh, good, convey. Yeah, and the response there would be visceral. No, I mean, it's what an insult. Well, name it, fair cousin.
Yeah, it's just a rapid back and forth, the way I imagine it.
Yeah.
I mean,
there would be a way of increasing the tension. Mark's going back a bit. Mark Silent King, the moral of this sport, how soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face. The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face. Say that again. The shadow of my sorrow. So if Richard didn't know that Henry was going to say the shadow of your sorrow, he's hearing it for the first time. Again, it comes back to what I was saying earlier about acting is not about what the actor feels, it's about what the actor makes the audience feel. But if you're working from cue scripts, then and you're working from cue scripts and with Shakespeare, then by saying those words, something will happen inside you. This is, in fact, the origin of prayer. I had a long conversation with a Muslim who talked about why prayer, and he said because there are a series of sounds which create vibrations in the body, and those series of sounds has a vibration in the body which opens the soul up to I guess you'd call it vibes.
Well, it's sort of like attuning yourself to the divine, as as I've heard some people say. It's sort of putting yourself in your body and your mind in a state where you can sort of communicate with a divine being that you normally wouldn't be able to do if you were, I don't know, just speaking regular conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, he the way he said it wasn't actually really talking about the divine. It was talking about the what's inside you, your soul, if you like.
Right, right.
And there was another thing he told me that absolutely blew me away. Do you know what intifada really means?
Well, I only understand it as uprising.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not at all.
Okay.
It's about exorcising the evil that is in you. It's not the evil that is in other people. It's about the evil that is in you.
It's sort of like the struggle with oneself.
Yeah, it's a cleansing. Yeah, I mean, and the Muslim Brotherhood, of course, have totally misunderstood that.
Well, I would say they hijacked it, really.
Yeah, and think of it as exorcising the evil in the world. It's and he said, I mean, this is a very old and very wise man, and he said, it's nothing. It's it's nothing to do with that. It's about cleansing yourself, which brings a whole new meaning to the word, anyway, so that's a bit of a digression, but it's a bit of a digression, but not completely, because the genius of Shakespeare is that if you again, you have to have the technique, but if you say these words, Shakespeare would take you on the journey. If you try to force an intellectual exterior something that is exterior to it, something that is that comes from the intellect rather than from the what do we call it, the soul, then you're betraying Shakespeare. you're not, as I said, as I say in my workshops, you're not letting Shakespeare play you. You're forcing your intellectual idea onto it. I mean, if you say, "No lord of thine, thou haught insulting man," I mean, there's no, it's visceral. Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of approach that you really can't intellectualize. It's one of those things where, at times you kind of have to not focus so much on the head as you are focusing on the heart, really.
Yeah. I mean, and that is, going back to speaking to Stanley, I had an hour and a half conversation once with Stanley Wells, many years ago, and he said something. I mean, head of studies at Oxford University. Okay. And he said something which, again, absolutely blew me away. He said, the reason why most Shakespeare productions are so goddamn boring is because they're too intellectual. Coming from the head of studies at Oxford University, that has to count for something.
Right. I was like, so you're probably thinking this man gets it. Like, he understands.
Yeah. Because I mean, as a title, I don't think you can get much more intellectual than head of studies at Oxford University.
Right. Right.
And so to criticize productions for being too intellectual, okay, but I'm not arguing with that.
But I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to think that plays are supposed to be intellectualized, because it would sort of it would sort of be like saying, well, movies today, these are intellectual exercises. You watch them merely just to understand what the subtext is, but you kind of forget, you go to these movies because they speak to you. They kind of have a sort of connection with you that you really can't apply intellectually. It's just visceral. It's just emotional. So I find it kind of puzzling sometimes that people would try to take something like Shakespeare and try to break it down into the sum of its parts and try to analyze it, when really there's you kind of just have, like you said, kind of have to take it at face value. It's not something that you should really go down a rabbit hole, because at that point you're missing the point of what Shakespeare is doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was Shakespeare at the time was popular entertainment,
right? Going to see Shakespeare would be like going to see Superman today.
Absolutely. I mean, the professional playhouses were the Hollywood of the time, and it's also, and the same is true for opera. I mean, opera was certainly at the time that Verdi was writing, it was a popular art form. The Milan Opera House was packed full of working class people. There were a few in the boxes. There were a few aristocrats, but I mean, it was because, again, opera, like Shakespeare, is visceral.
Yeah, and the words they do just as much to kind of set the scene and paint the scene as the sets themselves, really.
And the music,
right? In opera's case, the music as well.
Yeah, I mean, and Shakespeare. I mean, but of course, if you say Shakespeare is opera, then you're going into down a different rabbit hole.
Right.
I mean, there's a famous story about John Gielgud coming off stage after having given a speech, and to rousing applause. And he came off stage and said to one of the stagehands, "Oh my God, pure opera." And he was criticizing himself.
Right.
But actually, yes. I mean, if you look at those speeches, Richard II's, particularly Richard II's speeches, I mean, they are operatic arias in very much the same as is the Bishop of Carlisle's speech.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's an aria that you would get in an opera. Of course, its opera has become something completely different, certainly in Western Europe.
Right. It certainly has evolved, you know.
Well, partly because it's so expensive to produce, so the prices have to be so high. Yeah, but it's also
It's very moving, though. Like when you listen to it.
I mean, I've watched I think probably 6 or 7 productions of Traviata. I cry every time. Yeah, I cannot watch Traviata without being in tears at the end.
And that's sort of the same approach, you know, to bookend with what you said. You know, that should be the same reaction you get when someone is delivering Richard's speech. You know,
Yeah.
just when he's, you know, abdicating the throne, like you want to feel that sadness that he feel. Well, whether it's the argument could be whether it's genuine sadness or feigned sadness. I mean, you want to feel that as he's preparing to give away, you know, his inheritance because he's been deemed unfit by his cousin and the kingdom, really.
Yeah. And he's blown it, and he knows he's blown it. I mean, you know, I mean, there is a certain amount of in those arias, in those speeches, there's a certain amount of self-recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I blew it. Yeah. Must I revel out my weaved up folly? Yeah.
Yeah. Folly indeed.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know what you want to do next, whether you want to go on or
well, I think it's high time to just go ahead and wrap it up. And I mean, it was a really, really great discussion about Richard II. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just he's just such a strange character because even when he's confronted with, you know, by everybody with everything, he just refuses to, you know, accept what's going on. And in a way, you sort of pity him for that because he did this to himself. But at the same time, it's like he only got this way because there were people along the way who kind of shaped him into, you know, into what he would become. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. Yeah. But yeah, I would say that's, you know, it varies from person to person, but that's my take on him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm up for I with you. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited because next time I do want to discuss Midsummer Night's Dream, and I know we've missed Midsummer, but I still want to discuss that before the summer's out.
Yeah. It's high summer, even if it's not midsummer.
And I would be interested to get your take on Puck, because he's just such a mischievous little creature, and yet when he delivers that speech at the end of the play, it's like a wonderful recap of everything, and you come to figure out he's not such a bad guy after all. This Puck fella, good is Robin Goodfellow.
Yeah, he's kind of he's got Prospero's number, and maybe to the point where Prospero doesn't actually know how much, to what point Puck has got his number.
But that's something that we'll definitely talk about next time. All right. Well,
Okay.
I appreciate you taking the time to come on, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay.